What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Down Once More. Matt here. This week, we got another House of the Dragon recap coming at you. Episode 4, The Red Dragon and the Gold, just aired. And then got a few more things afterwards. So stay tuned for that. Some updates on what's coming and some just good old random podcasting for you. So let's get right into episode 204, or season 2, episode 4 of House of the Dragon. One thing I just want to start out by saying is that if you are watching this on Max, which I don't know how many people would be actively watching on a cable subscription, they're just hitting me over the head with the Game of Thrones Conquest, the mobile game ads, and it is insane. You get it before, you get it after, before we get the actual interview with the director, creator, cast, with some insight on the episode, and I'm sick of seeing the Game of Thrones Conquest ads. They're just ensuring that I never download this fucking game, unless they say, like, hey, you download the game, you don't get any ads anymore. But sick of it. Also, I'm trying to figure out how I want to do these recaps, reviews, thoughts on House of the Dragon. I've done a little bit of a mix. First one was more just like vibes. These were my initial thoughts, feelings on the episode. Episodes 2 and 3, I did a little more detailed notes. This time, this is my list of notes if you're watching on YouTube. Just an insane amount of notes. I'm trying to capture everything, do an accurate recap on it. And then it ends up taking me an hour and a half to get through the 54-minute episode because I'm pausing it and taking notes constantly. And I think we're going to do just vibes for this podcast. That's how we're kind of going to do this. I talk spoilers, so you should have watched the episode already. And if not, there's a lot better recaps out there. Not that I'm trying to send people away from the channel, but having not read the books, recording these the morning afterwards, so not even getting to see any discourse coming out online beforehand, probably not going to have the most insightful things. But what you will get here is my honest thoughts and opinions on the episode as a whole, and that's what we're going with. So this episode opened with Daemon in Harrenhal not in Harrenhal. We opened with Daemon in King's Landing, in the castle, the Red Keep, in the Iron Throne room. I cannot think if there's a different name of that, but he's facing the Iron Throne, which this is something I haven't called out, really. But if you watch Game of Thrones, you're watching this, the Iron Throne has a little bit different look to it. The Iron Throne in House of the Dragons is more how the Iron Throne is described in the books, just with all the melted swords around it. It's supposed to be this intimidating thing as well, not just the one chair, the throne made up of the melted swords. In House of the Dragon, we get the whole, not quite to the extent that's described in the Thrones books, but it's just a lot more massive than we get in Game of Thrones. But we open with Daemon having a vision of young Rhaenyra again on the throne. And you can hear voices, she's speaking to him, but it's muffled, it's faint, and it's in High Valyrian. At least I'm 99% sure that's High Valyrian. We're not throwing a different language in there right now. We get a decent amount of High Valyrian this episode. So one thing I do think is funny, though, because I like to watch it with subtitles on so I can pick up names and stuff they might miss otherwise. And when they have the subtitles on the screen, or the translation on the screen when they're speaking High Valyrian, you still get the subtitles on the screen, too. So you get double dose there. But basically, young Rhaenyra, we're getting the translation with it, is telling Daemon, like, you created me, you made me who I am, and now you're set on destroying me. Like, this is all because your brother loved me more, which just causes Daemon to fucking snap, decapitate her, and then look kind of like horrified over what he did instead of angry. I thought Matt Smith, he does a great job playing Daemon, and what he just portrays in his face and his emotion of what he's going through, I feel like has taken the character to another level. So kudos to Matt Smith for his portrayal, especially in these scenes that we're getting where he's being driven kind of mad from being in Harrenhal. And so after he decapitates her, the head, Millie Alcock's head, Rhaenyra's head, just continues to talk at him, saying, well, this is what you always wanted, isn't it? And then Daemon is woken up by Simon Strong, saying that a raven has come, and saying more and more houses have declared their banners for Cole, and a lot of them, everyone that's done it, has cited the murder of Jaehaerys as part of their reasoning behind it. So another thing that's kind of just digging the knife a little bit in Daemon, I feel like, saying, hey, all these people are declaring, and Strong doesn't know this, obviously, but internally, Daemon's like, well, all these are declaring for the other side because of the results of my actions that I took. And so Strong takes him to go meet with Oscar Tully, who looks like he's about 10. And he's the grandson of Grover Tully. Tully is the liege lord, what they called him, the Lord Paramount of the Riverlands. And so Daemon's talking to Oscar, asking, yo, how's your grandsire doing? He's like, well, he's unable to eat or drink. Basically, this guy's on life support. He's basically a corpse that we're just keeping alive right now. Daemon, just great. It's just so cold and how Daemon is as a character. Just tells this kid, well, maybe you should just put a fucking feathered pillow over his face and just speed along your inheritance. And Oscar is just like horrified, like, I love my grandfather. He basically raised me like a son. I would never do that to him. And Damon's like, okay, well, can you speak for him? Can you make a call? And he's like, well, that's not the way we do things. No, not while he's still alive. And he was like, this is fucking ridiculous. This is why the Brackens and the Blackwoods, who we saw at the beginning of episode 3, the Battle of the Burning Mill, and, well, the aftermath of the Battle of the Burning Mill. And he's like, well, this is why they're like, okay, fine. Let's just declare war. We're not getting punishment from the liege lord. Who cares if we have their blessing or not? We're going to war. Fuck the Tullys. What the fuck is good old Grover going to be doing over here? Just partnering with Elmo on Wild Adventures. So then Oscar is kind of, you can tell, see, we got just all the Sesame Street characters here. We got Oscar the Grouch, we got Grover, but Oscar is just like, hey, just looks kind of dejected after Damon's like, it's worthless. I need someone who will actually take action. Like, get the Blackwoods here, is what he tells Strong. Strong just kind of comforts him. And so I thought this was a great scene. You're seeing Damon's kind of not really rising. He's always been a little bit of a hothead and a man of action. And that's what he respects, men of action. And just this little child that's brought to him, saying that under the impression that he speaks for House Tully and on behalf of his grandfather and can make these calls. So I'm like, you are worthless to me. This was a waste of my fucking time. And then we get to cut to Rhaenys she's heading down to see Corlys. She comes across Alan, which maybe I was a fucking idiot and should have picked this up sooner. And this is just me not being observant at all. She's talking to Alan, who she says she hears he saved her husband and she owes him his life, and that Corlys owes Alan his life, and that she didn't know how comely he was, and his mother must have been very beautiful, and obviously implying he's Corlys's bastard, which I miss that. If those were like the hints and vibes earlier this season, I am just a moron that just went right over my head. And then here it's not implied, it's basically confirmed, because when Corlys comes down, she's like, I know who that guy is, but his past is no fault of him. Completely opposite vibes of Catelyn Stark here, who just shunned Jon Snow. She's like, his past is no fault of his. He should be like raised up, honored. He saved his lord's life, and now you're just trying to hide him beneath the tides, she says, just trying to hide him away. And I thought Rhaenys is one of the most level-headed characters we've seen here. I know people can be like, well, when she escaped the dragon pit with Meleys, she killed lots of innocent people. Well, I don't know. He should have been chilling out in a dragon pit. I don't know what to tell you. But Rhaenys has constantly been the one just kind of being the voice of reason at the council meetings, the voice of reason to Rhaenyra. And then even like with Corlys, just very even keel, mellow. And this is another scene of that, showing like kind of her compassion and not wanting to hold things against people that wasn't their fault. So kind of like with Rhaenyra, at first she could have been bitter about, I mean, she probably was a little bit about Viserys getting the throne over her, the queen who never was. And she could have been bitter about Rhaenyra getting the throne, Viserys making her his heir. But she's not. She's trying to counsel her. She's trying to support her, trying to lift her up. You gotta love women supporting women. There we go. But Rhaenys is like, yo, Baela summoned me to Dragonstone. We have to go off. I said I was just doing vibes, and now I'm just doing a recap of the episode. But we cut. Baela's summoned Rhaenyra. We got another council meeting there. Gotta love the council. We go back to King's Landing in between this. But they're like, hey, Cole's army, they're just hiding, using trees as cover now. We're just waiting. We can't. They're moving at night, so we can't see their movements as much by dragons. And then I think it's Sir Alfred is constantly the one that's constantly picking everything apart and arguing. Is like, well, maybe you should have fucking torched him when you had the chance. And Rhaenys speaks, but she's like, well, why don't you just ride out on your dragon and do that, Sir Alfred? And he's like, we're like a rudderless ship here. Rhaenys is like, hey, I'm trying our best to steer it. You're all doing it because you've got Jason Baela kind of running the council, the war council too, who are two kids. And so you have these older sirs who are now being thrown into war, their houses, their family. They pledge for Rhaenyra with Daemon's backing. Now Daemon's not there. I think it's Sir Alfred again, or one of the other council members asked Baela, like, have you heard from your father? We've sent ravens, haven't gotten anything back from Harrenhal. The fuck? He's like, no, I haven't heard from him. I don't know what's going on. Corlys comes in and kind of puts everyone in their place too, just kind of evens them out. He backs up Rhaenys and he says, hey, you mistrust Rhaenys, and Rhaenys is saying, like, we mistrust Rhaenyra is doing her best, that she's probably doing what we're all trying to do at this table, and that's bring an end to the conflict, bring an end to the war. So she's been gone for weeks. Instead of just sitting here bitching, complaining, trust she's doing what we're trying to do, bring an end to a war, not just make things worse. Because as we've talked about, a common thing is like a battle with dragons, a war with dragons, the bloodiest of them all. Lots of innocents are going to die, or lots of people in general are going to die. And so she's just trying to avoid that. And then in King's Landing, we're getting Alicent's visited by the Maester, bringing her tea. It's the good old moon tea, the good old plant, well, not even plan B, further on, good old abortion tea. And we got a pregnant Alicent with Cole trying to put an end to this. I don't know if that's just because she doesn't want it viewed that she has a bastard. I guess there's no way, well, the state Viserys is in, we can pretty much say it wasn't his. But I think part of this is she doesn't want to have another kid after Viserys, everything that's happened there, the optics of that with her role in place. And also, she's just seen a different side of Cole that she's just kind of turned off by it. And I think she is now seeing that he's kind of just an impetuous child. Even though he's older than her, he just is rash, impatient, and just wants to kind of put an end to this. And she's like desperate. You see her like grasping out to the Maester, like, hey, do you think Viserys actually changed his mind? He's like, well, I don't fucking know. Smart man, being honest, not just reaffirming what she said, but not saying if he thought differently. And he's like, I don't know. He never spoke to me about anything like that. And so then we're getting Coles at this House the Darkland Castle, House Darkland, trying to get them to pledge. And he's saying, if you don't pledge to Aegon and you choose to side, and you don't choose to come fight in the battle with us against the whore of Dragonstone, then you'll be killed. And kills Sir Darkland, who starts mouthing off to Cole a little bit and telling him that he's not worthy of who he is. There's no honor left there. Like, you're burning your queen's own castles and just putting people to the sword. And Cole, obviously, doesn't give a fuck, beheads him. Everyone from House Darkland then starts bending the knee, and I don't want to go the same route of their liege lord, their master there, who just got put to the sword. And then Cole tells Gawain, good old Gawain, Alicent's brother, that they're going to follow the river. They're going to head northeast. He's like, Gawain's like, hey, no, this isn't like your vibe, your zone. You're not used to this as much, but Harrenhal's west. Why are we not going to take Harrenhal? That's that way. You're going the opposite way. And Cole just goes, so it is. A smirk. And, he knows something that he's not sharing with everyone, which I'm not sure what the reason is for all from Cole and Aemon's, all the secrecy that we get that pays off at the end of the episode. I don't understand it besides giving us the payoff as the audience, why they wouldn't tell the others their plan. I get if you didn't have a leak, you don't want to risk having a leak or anything like that. But so I get maybe not Aemon not telling the High Council and everything there, just for Aegon to shoot it down more. But I don't think Cole has any reason not to tell Gawain this. So I don't know why he's just trying to keep him in the dark. Besides, I don't think he really likes Gawain, because Gawain, I don't think, really likes him. And then after this, we go to the council, because we're like, where the fuck is Cole heading? If you haven't read the book, which I haven't. And Aegon is just screaming at Larys. Alicent's not at the council. Good old clubfoot Larys, good old foot guy Larys is getting yelled at by Aegon, because he's like, well, Daemon now has Harrenhal, and that should have been ours. And Larys, you should be fucking pissed off. That's your own house. And Larys kind of clues in that he about the curse of Harrenhal and everything that's going on there and everything that he knows. He's like, hey, that castle is more crippled than I am. Basically, it is going to drive Daemon to madness. He's not going to be able to handle that. It is going to wear him down. And plus, he's penniless. Like, I control all of his money. I'm the actual Lord of Harrenhal. I have all that money. He's not gonna do him any good. He's going broke. He's staying there. He's not gonna be able to get people to support him. And the castle's fucking haunted, dude. Like, what are we doing here? And Aegon's like, well, I need to know these things. Like, I just look like an idiot if I don't know this. And Aemon chimes in, and I think Aemon's still a little pissed at Aegon because of everything that happened with the last episode at the whorehouse and everything there. And Aemon's like, hey, Harrenhal has to wait. Right now we're going for Rook's Rest. And he's like, what? That's such a small castle. That is no prize. Like, why would we go for there instead of Harrenhal? We need to go to Harrenhal. It's the linchpin of the Riverlands. And Aemon's like, well, Rook's Rest, it's weakly defended, and Lord Staunton sits on nearest council, so we take this castle, and Dragonstone, they're cut off by land then. And the war, it's not just won by dragons. We need the armies behind them. So we need to cut them off. We need to think strategically. We can't just go running in with dragons, everything, because that's no recipe to win everything. One thing is, I was taking notes. Autocorrect likes to change Aemon's name to Almond. So I was having to catch that, and I'm looking through my notes, and I'm like, oh, we got Almond out here doing this. Aegon is like, no, fuck that. Take Harrenhal. Do what I'm saying. I need that linchpin. Go to Harrenhal. I want this main castle, this giant keep in the Riverlands. And Aemon starts speaking to him in High Valyrian again. Like I said, we got lots of it this episode. Just fluently, just telling him everything that's going on. He's like, hey, because Aegon's questioning, he's like, you guys plotted and you guys did this behind my back and without my authority. And Aemon in High Valyrian, it's like, well, you obviously had more important things to do. Like, you were holding court and you were choosing your sobriquet. I don't know how you fucking pronounce this. This episode made me Google things. So in case you're wondering what a sobriquet is, maybe you know, and I'm just a moron. That's what we're establishing here. Sobriquet is a person's nickname. So he's like, you're just more worried about just holding your court, hearing people, coming up with your nickname, these unimportant matters. And he says he's naming imbecilic lickspittles for their Kingsguard. And if he has a better strategy, he should speak up. Lick spittle, I also looked up, which if I would have thought about it, it's basically like bootlickers. You're licking the spit off there, which is essentially what it is. But this infuriated me. I hate this when I Google and then have to Google more things. Lick spittle is a person who behaves obsequiously to those in power. So then, of course, because this may shock you, obsequious, not in my typical vocabulary. Oh my God. Obsequiously or obsequious means obedient or attentive to an excessive or servile degree. So that's what Eamon's telling him. Like, you are just getting yes men. You're just getting these people who are going to kiss your ass, and that's what you're more concerned over. And then Aegon tries to respond, but it's in broken Valyrian, and it is just digging himself a hole. It's just so embarrassing. He's like, I can have to make a war? That's what the translation is. He says, I can have to make a war. And even though the High Council probably doesn't speak High Valyrian, they can just tell Aemon's fluent, natural, saying things confidently, and Aegon's just fucking lost. Now I have to go to work and I have a presentation, so I'll finish my recap vibe later. So later. All right, we're back. Wardrobe change, sweaty, later in the day. Story to come on that after the House of the Dragon review. But jumping right back in, we just had the small council meeting, or high council. I'm pretty sure it's small council. I've been calling it high council, and now I've been going back in my head. 99% sure it's small council. Larys goes to check on Alicent, like, yo, what's up? The feet of my desire. You're gone. Just barges into her room. Where you been? Checking on you. You weren't high council. She's like, oh, is that fucking lamprey pie? Stew? Pie. Messing with me. Not feeling well. Taking a break. Larys clocks the container for the moon tea, which, I mean, you just can't be leaving that stuff out. I mean, would you leave your Plan B package just laying on the counter where anyone could come in? No, you destroy that stuff. Maybe she's thinking, hey, it doesn't have a label on it. He could think this is just what I had my berries in. Who knows? But he clocks it. He's not an idiot. He knows what's going on. It's making some comments, veiled ones, kind of alluding to the relationship with Cole, saying she hasn't seemed herself as of late. And Alicent's just like, hey, I'm just going from like, I don't have time to grieve. It's just one tragedy, then another. It's been weeks. So we're establishing some more of the timeline. She's like, it's just been weeks since my Lord husband died. And he's like, didn't know you were that fond of him, but whatever. And he's questioning. He sees all these books because Alicent's researching, trying to figure out, what is the Song of Ice and Fire? What's going on here? And so he's like, I didn't know you had a love of the history, shared Viserys' love of the history. And she's clocking like, hey, even Viserys knew, like, wisdom alone can only bring you so far. You have to kind of learn from your mistakes, learn from the past, and go from where you are. Just like your own knowledge, it's not going to get you everywhere in life. Now, you got to trust those who came before you a bit. And uses that to justify why she's looking into the histories. And then Larys asks her, which you can kind of tell that he's not completely buying the Viserys changed his mind story either. He's like, do you think the history is what caused Viserys to change his mind? Why he's like, I know how the kingdom would react to Rhaenyra being queen. And Alicent says something that I think kind of sums up her view now, and it is 100% accurate where we're at in the story. She's like, the significance of Viserys' intentions died with him. They do not matter now. Essentially what she told Rhaenyra at the end of last episode. Like, it is too late. Whether it was a mistake, a misunderstanding or not, we are in too deep now. Shout out Sum 41. And this is where we are at. So I thought that was great. We're back to Daemon and Harrenhal now. He sees Boots outside his hallway. Another vision, haunting ghost, follows it down. You can tell from the back already it is himself. But he turns around when he gets to the end of a hallway and he has the eye patch on, like Aemond, kind of seeing himself in Aemond and kind of the part he played a little bit in creating Aemond and where he's at now. And then this is where he runs into Alice Rivers, who is who we saw in the last episode when he was having his first main vision at the heart tree, and that tells him, "You're going to die here." And so he sees her, starts talking to her. After the episode, Ryan Condal, the showrunner, is talking about how in the books, Alice Rivers is described as like a wood witch, and that she's potentially hundreds of years old, and she's in the book quite a bit. And that's some things I had seen online too, when people are kind of talking. Book spoiler people are out there, so be careful if you're scrolling Twitter or social media there, or X. I can't get used to calling it X. It's Twitter. But she says like, I inherited the duties here, because he asks, "Are you a Meister?" She's like, kind of, sort of. I inherited the duties. The last one kind of took off, wasn't really settling in here. Kind of questions Damon how he's settling in, and he's wary, obviously, because of her in his vision the last time, and where she's at. And she's telling him like, this place is cursed. Like, the place it's built on, there was a grove of weirwood trees here that Black Heron, the guy's name who built Harrenhal, kind of destroyed. And the bed Damon's sleeping in is made from a heart tree. Now, call me crazy. If I'm Damon, I'm not going back and sleeping in that bed. Like, oh, this is a potential haunted bed that contains the soul of someone who lived long before. No, thank you. I'm going out. I'm worried that there's like a Freddy Krueger in whichever Nightmare on Elm Street that is, where he like goes through the wall and like is attacking them. I'm worried that shit's about to happen. So I'm not going back and laying down in that bed. But Alice is kind of pushing him and asking, "Oh, is your plan now? You haven't responded to any of these ravens that have been sent. Is your plan now to make your own claim for it? You're trying to prove yourself to Rhaenyra now. Is that what you're doing here? Is it pleasing you that her legitimacy is questioned? You think you're the big man now?" Essentially, like, you're just trying to do things on your own, show you don't need her. You're going to take this. You're going to be strong yourself. And Damon is a little bit triggered by this. Doesn't get into it too much. But Alice then gives him this concoction that she had been working on while he's there. It looks like she's got blood all over her hands, some kind of tea, and she tells him, "Drink this. It'll help you sleep. You're going to need your rest to deal with this." And then Damon just wakes up in the middle of a meeting with Willem Blackwood, who mentioned that he's ruling the house now as regent until his nephew Benjicott comes of age. Now, Benjicott is someone that people who had read the books thought that maybe the Blackwood that we got at the beginning of last episode, for the Burning Mill episode, was Benjicott, or Bloody Ben, as his moniker is in the book. And they thought that might have been him, but it's not, because we saw his corpse dead, and I forget the name that was attributed to him in the credits. But we're getting the reference to Benjicott, and Sir Willem actually references that he had made a play, and he bent the knee to Viserys and acknowledged Rhaenyra long ago as the rightful heir, and he had once actually vied for Rhaenyra's hand before she wed Sir Laenor, and he said that she truly has the blood of the dragon in her, which isn't something I would necessarily be bringing up to her crazy uncle husband right now. But hey, that's what we decided to go with. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there's a Blackwood child in season 1 with young Rhaenyra going for her hand. And I believe that is who this is, the callback there to Willem. And Damon starts to ask if he's prepared to fight without the leave of their liege lord for him. And then he sees Water Girl coming towards him, and he's seeing Laena, his wife, Laena Valerian. That was his wife, that his daughter's mother, who had childbirth and then got torched by her dragon, basically committed suicide by dragon in season 1. And so he's seeing her in these visions. So another sign of Harrenhal just kind of messing with his mind and just twisting him, and kind of seeing all these impacts that his choices, his decisions have made on people, just kind of coming back to haunt him with young Rhaenyra and Aemond and now Laena. And then We go back again to Aegon at a council meeting, just looking irritable and frustrated and just out of it, not into it, still kind of dealing with the effects of Aemon's reactions and kind of humbling of him in the last council meeting, or the last one we saw. And the council's just praising Cole and the victories he's winning, the banners he's all bringing under their flags, that talks that they're calling Cole Kingmaker. And then Aegon just snaps and says they bore him, and he storms out, and he goes to his chambers, and Alicent's in there looking for more of Viserys's books. And she starts questioning, like, what did you do with his books? Kind of knowing how impetuous he is and impulsive. I think worried that he just destroyed them. Like, where are your books? And Aegon says he had them removed. And Alicent's like, well, do you just not care about any of this knowledge that is contained there and what came before you? And Aegon just kind of defensively is like, hey, I just said I moved them. I didn't burn them. All right. Just stop jumping to the worst conclusions. And Alicent is just kind of frustrated and putting him in his place here because she just doesn't have any power. She thinks Cole's revolting, standing up against her. Aegon sent away her father, who was kind of backing her and kind of supported her, and she felt like they were mostly on the same page. She disagreed with Otto some, but for the most part, he is the one that influenced her and kind of inspired the choices that she was making and how she was influencing her son. And Aegon's just saying, I don't know, this council, they don't mind me at all. They don't care about my thoughts, my opinions. They're just doing their own thing. Aemond and Cole, they don't ask for counsel from me. And Alicent's like, okay, well, what are your thoughts then? And he just is like, well, I'm the king. That's what he says. And Alicent goes and says, are you thinking that just being the king just imbues you with wisdom, essentially, like magically? You think just because you wear that crown, you just magically are smarter, you know what to do, you know the decisions and choices to make? No. She's like, I was hoping that you just stay there, shut your fucking mouth, and learn from those around you who have had their experiences, lived their lives, and then maybe you would have been half the king your father was. Aegon is getting frustrated now, just telling her, you better watch your mouth, what you were saying to me. And Alicent's like, the fuck are you going to do about it? You going to kill me like your rat catchers? You going to banish me like my father, like your hand of the king? I don't know what you're going to do. Like, I have this knowledge. I have this experience. I essentially ruled while Viserys is on his deathbed and just slowly decaying and going into not necessarily madness, but losing his faculties, losing where he's at. And Otto, my father, your hand that you just banished was brilliant, a strategist, and knew what was going on. And Aegon just at this point is just like, I don't know what to do. What would you have me do then? And Alicent just tells him, just kind of validating that he is not worthy and should not be in this role and doesn't know what he's doing. She's like, I'd have you do what's needed of you. And that is nothing. And then now we're getting towards the crux of this episode. The end, the linchpin, not really the linchpin, the whole climax. And that's Cole's having his men, they're cutting down trees outside of Rook's Rest. And he's like, hey, let's go to battle. It's time, rally the men, we're going. And Gwaine is just questioning, like, are you mad? Do you not remember the dragon that we saw? Why are we attacking in broad daylight? We need to wait for nightfall and we can attack under the cover of darkness. And Cole's like, well, they won't expect it. We're going now. And Gwaine is just questioning, basically thinking we are all going to be slaughtered. Like, I'm thinking with common sense here. The fuck are you doing, man? And Cole is still just ordering them. He's like, we're going to advance. Get ready to go. And now we are in Dragonstone again. Jason's saying we need to send the dragons. And this is when Rhaenyra, in the nick of time, walks in and is saying, whoa, where are we going to send the dragons? And Jace, just who has constantly been not necessarily trying to challenge his mother, but he feels like she is constantly just leaving him out, not giving him opportunities to go out on dragon, avenge Luke, avenge his family and what's going on. It's like, well, I want us to send a dragon to support the war that your vassals, that the men who have pledged their banners to you, have been fighting in your absence. And then he ends it with a your grace. And as a straight white man, I'm not sure I'm allowed to use this phrase, but he is definitely serving cunt. He says this quite cuntily to her, and she has a look on her face kind of like, the fuck did you just say? Renice pipes in and talks about all the cities and the houses that have been pledging to Cole while she's gone. And the council starts kind of questioning her, and Rhaenyra speaks to him as like, I have been in King's Landing trying to secure the peace that this council should be desiring, that we should be fighting for. And I'm trying to secure that peace without unnecessary bloodshed. And I have now come to the conclusion that I either need to win my claim or die. And that's what we're going for. Rhaenys tells her that Cole has grown bold and he's marched on Rook's Rest right in their face, where a member of her own council's house. And that Cole is just daring them to act. And Jace again is like, that's why I say we need to send this fucking dragon. We need to show them who it is. And Rhaenyra says, those who have taken my caution for weakness are going to see for who I am. I'm going to fly out there and fight. Jace is like, hey, if you die, all is lost. Do not risk your life. Do not waste your life on this. Let me fly out for you. Rhaenyra tells him he doesn't have the experience in battle, just again putting him down, making him feel invalidated and like he's not good enough to defend his family, defend what will be rightfully his too, because he is then Rhaenyra's heir. He's her eldest, and so he would be heir to the throne after her. Rhaenys says, I need to be the one that goes. I have our largest dragon in Meleys, and I'm no stranger to battle. I'll meet Cole on the battlefield, and I will basically show him what's up. And then this is when we get a supercut. Aegon's drinking in his chambers. He's just pushing his wine pitcher to the edge, smashes it on the floor, storms out. You can kind of tell he's storming out with intent. He's going to go do something rash, just completely opposite of what Alicent just told him to do, which was nothing, what was needed of him. And then you have Rhaenyra in her chambers, and Jace comes in and is like, hey, I only want to fight for you and your claim and my claim. And Rhaenyra starts telling him that, hey, I should have told you this when you originally became heir. This is a secret Viserys told me. His father, when she was named his successor, his father had told him. It was passed down. The Targaryen who sits on the Iron Throne, they're a protector. They have to lead the Seven Kingdoms, strengthen them, unite them against a common foe. It tells him it's called the Song of Ice and Fire. So we got that a little bit in the first one, just the minor hints. So we're just kind of, constantly referring back to what we discover the Song of Ice and Fire is in the final season of Game of Thrones, kind of trying to add some more credence and validation to that season. And we're constantly getting reminded of that this season of House of the Dragon especially. But you're having a super cut during this of you are seeing Rhaenys go to Meleys and preparing for battle. Aegon's in his armor and approaching Sunfire, his dragon. And you're seeing the men on Rook's Rest get everything lined up on their walls for their defenses for the battle. And you can tell shit is about to go down. And then we cut to the Battle of Rook's Rest beginning. Men fighting, and then someone on the ground calls out that they see a dragon. And you have Rhaenys and Meleys fly in, start just torching people on the ground. Cole tells his men to give the signal in the woods, and they let loose a couple flaming arrows, and then you're hearing horns go throughout the woods. And then you see a dragon, a massive dragon shift in the woods, and you see Aemond and Vhagar hiding out in the woods. This was Aemond and Cole's plan all along. They're going to attack that keep, that castle close to Dragonstone, get Rhaenyra and her men and council to play into their hand, send a dragon, and then take them out with Vhagar, the largest dragon that exists in this show currently. I forgot how bad of a turkey neck Vhagar has, but oldest dragon makes sense. But as Aemon and Vhagar are about to take off. You see another dragon fly overhead, and Aemon recognizes it's Aegon and just calls him an idiot in Valyrian. I love the casual use of Valyrian in this. And tells Vhagar to wait, to hold up. Sunfire and Meleys, Sunfire and Aegon, Meleys and Rhaenyra start battling each other, just locking up, and Aegon yells Dracarys, kind of spits some flame at Meleys and Rhaenyra. They spin, kind of tear up Sunfire's underside's belly, crashes to the ground. I don't know, I'm describing this whole battle. My description sucks. Go watch the scene if you haven't already. If you haven't already watched it, why are you listening to this? But we're just constantly seeing this battle, and Aegon just trying to have some resilience with Sunfire, but definitely outmatched against Rhaenys and Meleys. And as they're engaged, you kind of see it's almost like when you see a monster creeping in the woods, the men on the walls of Rook's Rest just see some giant dragon wings flapping above the tree line, and then you see Vhagar come into view, and it's kind of sad because Aegon sees Aemon and Vhagar coming, and you see kind of the excitement on his face. He's locked in. Meleys is not, Sunfire is not winning this battle against Meleys and Rhaenys. And then you can see his relief, and then Aemon just yells Dracarys and just has Vhagar unleash this stream of fire against Aegon and Rhaenyra, just not really giving a fuck about it. And you see Sunfire and Aegon start plummeting towards the ground with this, and they land. And something new I learned is that dragons are like every vehicle in every Fast and Furious movie, that they explode when they hit the ground. I should clarify, not every vehicle in every Fast and Furious movie, because there's two outcomes. Either they will fall from a massive height and then be drivable and be fine, or they will explode. Dragons are the exploding type of cars, and they just hit that ground, and that fire, the gas and everything in them apparently combusts, and it's just fireball. So they crash to the ground. Cole starts running towards him to kind of check on the king, just kind of a realization of, what have I done? The king is in danger now. Was not my intent. And that's maybe why you don't keep things secret from the king. Maybe don't tell the whole fucking council, but tell the other person who's shown that they have no patience and they have a dragon, and they've mentioned before they were going to fly out. Maybe tell him, hey, I've got this plan, but I get it. He wants the glory and he wants to be validated too. So maybe that would have just spurred him on anyways. Who knows? Probably a lose-lose if you're on Team Green. But Vhagar and Meleys are just locked in combat and then crash to the ground. And you can tell Meleys is taking some damage and flies off. And Meleys kind of looks resigned because they've gotten away. Vhagar's crashed on the ground. He could have just left, peaced out, lived to fight another day. There would have been the same outcome here. Spoiler alert. But then she looks back, kind of resigned, and tells Meleys to attack. Dragons. I think it's actually just right after the crashing to the ground. But Rhaenys and Meleys are still flying, and now they're looking for Vhagar. And as soon as they clear Rook's Rest, Vhagar just comes up and chomps down on Meleys' neck. You see Meleys kind of looks back at Rhaenys. It's just a heartbreaking scene between the CGI dragon and the actress who plays Rhaenys, who does a fantastic job throughout this entire series scene. It just kind of just a sadness, almost like a I'm sorry look, washes over Meleys' face. And Rhaenys just kind of lets herself go, like resigns, lays her arms back, and they crash to the ground. And as we established 2 minutes earlier in this series, explode on impact into the walls of Rook's Rest, just opening it up for the castle to be taken. Aemon and Vhagar, they look content at their handiwork, what they have done, and fly off. Then it cuts to black. I thought the episode was ending there. I just thought that was it. We're done. But then we get Cole waking up and going off to find Aegon, trying to see if he survived, what's what. And we get this scene where he comes across a suit of armor. I thought it was just someone kneeling there, just kind of resigned. And he touches it to say, we need to find the king. We need to check on the king. and it just crumples, and there's just this charred, burned skeleton that just disintegrates inside of it. I thought this was, maybe I'm easy to please, this was one of the coolest scenes of the episode to me. Like, one of the coolest visuals right there. I loved that. Just seeing the destruction that the fire and the dragons have wrought upon this. And I think Cole's kind of coming to the realization of this war with the dragons is no small matter. Like, before, it's about guts and will and just strategy. Cole aces. Like, we forget he beat Damon in a tournament in season 1. So Cole is one of the best fighters out there. But this with the dragons, just beyond his knowledge. He comes into where Sunfire fell, and you can see Aemon there, who has his sword drawn, but looks like he's sheathing it as Cole walks up. Cole yells at him, calls out to him, and asks where Aegon is. Aemon just bends down and picks up Aegon's dagger, which this is something that I should know from research. The dagger appears to be the same one, or at least of the same make and style, that kicks off all the fun shit in Game of Thrones. So not sure if that's in the books or not sure if that's accurate or not, but it sure looks like the same dagger. And we see Sunfire in this whole scene is just kind of moaning, kind of seeming like he's giving his death groans, but we don't actually see Aegon's full body. Cole reacts as though he's dead and charred, and you see some kind of smoking armor, but you don't see a full body. I don't think Aegon is dead. Book readers already know if Aegon's dead or not. And also, I saw the preview for next week's episode. It doesn't seem as if he's dead. It seems like he's probably just severely injured and probably bordering on dead. But hell, that's how Viserys was living at the end of his life. So who knows? And that's where we end. That's where we end this episode. I thought this was the best episode of the series so far. Of House of the Dragon, this was right up there. Some fun facts. This is now tied for one of the 5th highest rated episode of all of the Game of Thrones saga in this series in the world of Westeros. Winds of Winter, 9.9. Battle of the Bastards, 9.9. Reigns of Castamere, 9.9. Hardhome, 9.8. And then there's a handful of them rated 9.7 on IMDb with this episode, the title of which I don't know if I even said, The Red Dragon and the Gold. So one of the best, highest rated episodes of Thrones, the highest rated episode of House of the Dragon, and rightfully so. We got so much storytelling in this, so much rich dialogue between the characters, establishing, just helping us to learn more about them, their motivations, where they're at. And then we capped it off with this fantastic battle that sets the stage for this bloody war between dragons. So I thought it was fantastic. One thing I hate is that Cole and Aemon, you gotta tip your cap to them a little bit. This plan was brilliant. They took out Rhaenyra's arguably behind Daemon's dragon. Daemon's dragon's a fucking beast, but their most talented and most experienced warrior on Dragonback, and the strongest dragon besides Daemon and Daemon's dragon. So the only one that's currently with Rhaenyra and not off. I don't know. I get that he's a piece of shit, but I kind of like Aemond. I gotta say it. I'm kind of an Aemond guy. But I don't know. One other thing that I thought was kind of cool is I saw a note that said that this scene, the battle in the woods at the beginning of the Battle of Rook's Rest, was filmed in the same woods as the opening battle of Gladiator. So fun fact, unless it's internet bullshit, and then this is my disclaimer. So I cannot be held guilty for that. But I'm pumped. We're not even halfway through this season. It's been fantastic. I think it already tops season 1 for me. I think part of it is just we're now in a consistent timeline with the characters. One of my things with season 1, which I get why they did it, is you get connected to the younger versions of these characters, and then you have the time jump, and it feels like you're almost getting to know them again. Like, time has passed, things have happened in their lives. It's different actors, actresses for the most part. Cole is the same, Viserys is the same, but you're getting to learn that you have to learn to love and know these characters again. And so now we've been established with them for half a season of season 1, and we have had a fantastic half of season 2 so far. And so I can't wait to see what's next. So that's going to do it for the recap of The Red Dragon and the Gold, House of the Dragon season 2, episode 4. Now into some random podcast stuff. That's almost as long as the episode that recap was. So hopefully you enjoyed some of that. And there you go. All right. I promised I was going to talk, well, you didn't really actually care. But in my recap of House of the Dragon, I said I would explain the wardrobe change. Now, obviously, one of those is I have been starting because life is crazy. I am busy. I have started to record the podcast when I can before I leave for work in the morning. If I tend to ramble and go longer than anticipated, I do not have time to finish that recording before work. So I am recording it Monday night now. I just got done replacing my fucking mailbox for the 5th time since I lived here, and I am just about through with it. The first 2 times we had crackhead neighbors that always had parties and were dealing drugs and stuff. So people would just get drunk or high or whatever the fuck they were doing, or just not pay attention, or just have fun and run into the fucking mailbox. So I had to replace the post multiple times, the actual mailbox 2 or 3 times. And then I had to replace it because during an ice storm, part of the neighbors from across the street's tree fell, crushed it, shattered the mailbox. So obviously got a new mailbox, replaced that. This weekend was the 4th. Well, this past week was the 4th of July. I went out to mow this weekend, and I noticed that there was shattered like plastic from a tail light laying in my yard. How our house is, I live in town. The houses are fairly close together. Got about maybe 8 feet, 10 feet a yard between houses. Our neighbor has pickup, and they have a couple motorcycles. They like to back the pickup up and then pull it up so they can get motorcycles out around it. I noticed some broken taillight glass in my yard. I'm like, well, that sucks. I bet someone was firing fireworks, hit their taillight, busted it. Sucks to have to deal with that. When I moved the plastic out of the way in the mode, I didn't throw it away. Maybe they were going to try to super glue it together. So I just kind of put it on the sidewalk. Cut to me being done mowing, going out to check the mail, and notice my mailbox is loose as fuck. I go to mess with it. It's a plastic mailbox on a wooden post. I go to mess with it. It is wobbly. It is busted. And I'm just like, you know what? This is at the same height as that tail light. I bet they hit it. Now, as I've learned from my work, my employee handbook is that we always have to presume good intentions. And I think that's a good strategy and a way to live your life. Always presume good intentions. You don't want to jump to conclusions. You want to think the best in people. There's enough shitty people out there, enough people who just always jump to the negative or jump to the worst. So I try to presume good intentions. I said, maybe this is a coincidence. Maybe this is completely unrelated. Well, when I went out later that day to take my trash out, their tail light, not broken, repaired very quickly, but not until after dark, which I thought was odd. And so I'm like borderline thinking that I've been like gaslighting myself. I'm like, was I like imagining this? Am I losing my mind with all the shit that's been going on lately? Have I like officially snapped and their tail light was never broken? But there's still some small pieces of the plastic there. The big ones have been thrown away and discarded, but the small pieces are there. And I'm like, whatever. Maybe it wasn't them. Maybe these are two coincidences and unrelated things. However, when I looked at it today, there was clear signs that it was from a taillight because there was a little bit of the plastic underneath one of the screws on the mailbox. So neighbor totally hit the mailbox. Maybe they thought because it didn't completely come off that it wasn't broken, but it was clearly broken. Didn't say anything. So now I have replaced my 5th mailbox in 7 years. Averaging less than averaging a little over a year per mailbox. So could be worse. Other fun notes on here, not House of the Dragon related, because This isn't a House of the Dragon podcast, even though it seemed like it lately. This is ultimately a musical, random, fun jaunt and podcast. Brad and I's review of Wish is coming soon. I am out of the state all of next week for a work conference. So we'll see how that works. I'll either pre-record an episode, or if I don't get one pre-recorded, I will be bringing the mic and stuff with me and trying to record, edit, and upload in a hotel room in Philadelphia after my conference is over. So we'll see. Stay tuned for that. Could be interesting stuff. Otherwise, the Wish review may air next week if Brad and I are able to film this week. So that's coming up there. After that, I'm going to try to give, because we have been in a musical drought. So I'm going to try to either get on some additional guests or do a solo musical review, get back to the roots of the podcast a little bit, and do a few extra ones here in July. So try to do 2 review episodes, or at least 2 musical centric episodes. And so stay tuned for that. I also want to give a shout out. I've started getting back into the How Did This Get Made podcast. I've talked about it on here a few times. It's with Paul Scheer, Jason Mantzoukas, June Diane Raphael, and they just talk about just bad movies, and they're comedians. It is funny. It is entertaining as hell. I love Jason Mantzoukas. He's great in The League. He's great in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He's great in the John Wick movies that he's in. It's great. And so How Did This Get Made? I like when I've seen the movie, so I know what they're talking about. So I went back, and for a while, I was keeping up with it. So weekly, I would be watching. They do 2 movies a month. So every other week is a movie review. The following week is one like corrections and omissions or last looks from things they may have missed from that movie. So I'd watch the movie and then listen to the episode and usually laugh my ass off. It's a great time. But I listened to their ones on the 50 Shades trilogy. Fantastic, especially on the original one, 50 Shades of Grey, their review of that and talking about it. Hilarious. If you've seen those movies, highly check it out. How Did This Get Made? And then the one that I listened to this weekend, I watched Madam Web, the Dakota Johnson Sony Marvel movie that just got blasted by critics and audiences alike for so many reasons. It has some of the worst ADR that I have seen in a movie. That's so obvious. It looks like a poorly dubbed movie at so many times, where what they are saying from the villain does not match how his lips are moving, even in the slightest. We have just the most random, insane plot points, and it's just an insane movie. It is streaming on Netflix now. I'm not going to do a full review of it on here, but you need to watch it, and you need to listen to How Did This Get Made's review. It is entertaining as hell. They also do one on Jason Statham's Beekeeper, which is a fun action movie. Check those out. That's what I did, painting and sanding for hours this weekend, and that's what kept me sane during all of that, because I hate sanding and I hate painting. So How Did This Get Made? Have to give another shout out to them. And have to give a shout out to all of you who are still watching and listening. This year especially has been crazy. We've seen more growth on the podcast on the YouTube channel than we have in the 2 previous years combined. We have essentially doubled our subscribers on YouTube. The audio listeners don't get like accurate numbers on those, but appreciate all of you that are tuning in week after week, who are liking, commenting, rating, subscribing, all that. It means a lot. I am a chronic overthinker and care far too much about what people think. So there are times that this is just not great for my mental health, because I read all the YouTube comments and I just bite my tongue sometimes and just put the phone down to avoid getting in arguments of something with people who are just obviously trolling or trying to get reactions. And so I've gotten better at just separating that, enjoying what it is. But I'm constantly watching the numbers. If subscribers drop, we lose some. It affects me more than it should for something that should be fun. And so the people who have voiced support, who have reached out in DMs, on the comments on YouTube, the people who keep coming back, the reviews we've gotten on Spotify, Apple, all that stuff, it means a lot. I really appreciate all of you. I want to make this something that's still fun to listen to, even if like the House of the Dragon stuff, I know that's all it's been lately. And I'm sorry. I'm working on that thing. Life has been crazy and rough. The last 4.5, 5 months have been some of the hardest months of my life. Not get into too many details, but it has been rough. And so finding the time and still doing this has been a lot. I'm still enjoying it. It's been stressful because I'm my toughest critic. And so when things aren't as good as I feel like they should be, it eats me up. And I've re-recorded episodes of this so many times during editing, and this might get cut out of the episode. We'll see. But I appreciate you all. Just want to give that shout out. I don't say it enough. I know it's not what this podcast originally started out as. It has changed so much, but give us suggestions. If there's things you want to see, I like doing this podcast for other people. I like having ideas and a framework to go from, because producing this and coming up with what I'm going to talk about every week, I've been in a little bit of a creative rut. So that's part of why we're just getting House of the Dragon recaps, because my brain has been fried and with work stuff and other life stuff that I have not been able to think of fun things to do on a weekly basis. So send me suggestions. Take that part off my plate and I will love you forever. So thank you all. I'm going to close out on that sentimental note on a long ass mini episode this week. Thank you all. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, follow, all that fun stuff. Appreciate you. Don't forget to go down once more. Later.